Kim here, and you are tuned back into the SoulSense YouTube channel. I am so excited to be talking about what we are going to be covering today. And before we get into it though, do me a favor and subscribe right here and ding that notification bell so you never miss an upload. We are, like we mentioned in our earlier videos, we are definitely trying to develop and expand our YouTube platform. So we're going to be having videos like this come up every Friday at 2 p.m. And also on Thursdays, we're also going to have the videotaping and audio of our podcast. For those who don't know, me and my husband Melvin, we have a podcast named the SoulSense Podcast, and we've been doing it for about a year and a half now, and a little over a year. I wouldn't say quite a year and a half, but we've been trucking along, and we've decided that this year we wanted to also develop our YouTube channel. And so I definitely encourage you guys to go over there and subscribe over there. It's free, just like subscribing here on the YouTube channel is free. So anywho, let's get right into it. So today what we're going to be talking about is how to become a godly woman. What are the characteristics of a godly woman? Can I be a godly woman? Who is this woman that we say that is a godly woman? What is that all about? So we're going to dive into that, and we're going to be parked in Proverbs 31 verses 10 through 31, where we're going to be talking about the virtuous and capable woman. In some translations, I've even seen the section entitled Woman of Valor. I've seen it, but typically it's the virtuous woman that you'll see across many different translations. So, of course, what you guys will learn about me is that, like I have stated before, I am a student of the word. I just don't read, I like to study. I want to have a very deep understanding of what I am reading. So I do a lot of definition writing. I do a lot of journaling and writing down definitions, synonyms, antonyms, so I can refer back to them as I'm reading through the passage. So of course, I looked up what virtuous was, and basically what virtuous is, it's a person, it's having high moral standards. It's a quality of someone who has moral standards. Also, some synonyms would be a person of valor. Valor is defined as audacity, fearlessness, also boldness. So keep those things in mind as we are reading through this passage and breaking it down. This is not a person we're not reading about a person who is fearful, because it says that she is fearless. This is not a person who is weak and shrinks back, because because the word in itself represents boldness. So keep those things in mind as we're reading through. Also, I want to give just a little bit of background on the Proverbs 31 woman. I have read this passage many times. I have studied this passage many times. And anyone who's probably a follower of God and who's a woman probably has studied this passage out extensively. It is like a life passage for me. Whenever I'm struggling in an area of my life, I feel like this passage speaks to every area of a woman's life. And it's just one of my favorite passages. This is my standard. This is what I'm working towards when it comes to certain things in my life. So, of course, I had this question, and apparently many other people had this question, because I was able to find a lot of stuff online. Who is this woman? Like, is it a particular woman? And there's been a couple of different thoughts that have been out there. And what I came across was pretty much two different thoughts. One thought is that it's a collection of a lot of women, that it's not one particular woman, but it's a collection of a lot of different qualities of a woman. And then also another thought as well is that it's Lydia, who is mentioned in Acts. And the reason why is because we know that Lydia was a woman who dyed purple, which in that day was a very extensive process. It was very expensive, and you only could do it in certain areas. And we know that that's what Lydia did. Well, this passage speaks of a woman who also deals in purple fabric and dyes purple linens as well. So that's why people kind of were thinking, is it Lydia? But we really don't know. And so anywho, what we do know, because she does deal in linens and fine linens and purple cloths and stuff like that, this is a woman who probably had a little bit of money, because of the process that was around it and the time and the effort that went into it. It was something that was rare in that time. And if you bought it, you were someone who was wealthy, and you paid a fine dollar for it because it was not a common thing. Okay. So just a little background before we dive into the passage itself. All right, so let's go ahead and break this thing down. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read the passage. Like I said, it's verses 10 through 31. So it's a bit lengthy, but it's good. And so just bear with me as I read through it. So starting in verse 10, a virtuous and capable wife. Who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She is more precious than rubies. Her husband can trust her, and she will greatly enrich his life. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She is like a merchant ship, bringing her food from afar. She gets up before dawn to prepare breakfast for her household and plan the day's work for her servant girls. She goes to inspect a field and buys it. With her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She is energetic and strong, a hard worker. She makes sure her dealings are profitable. Sorry, guys. Her lamp burns late into the night. Her hands are busy spinning thread, her fingers twisting fiber. She extends a helping hand to the poor and opens her arms to the needy. She has no fear of the winter for her household. She has no fear of winter for her household, for everyone has warm clothes. She makes her own bedspreads. She dresses in fine linen and purple gowns. Her husband is well known at the city gates, where he sits with the other civic leaders. She makes belted linen garments and sashes to sell to the merchants. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. When she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. She carefully watches everything in her household and suffers nothing from laziness. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. There are many virtuous, capable women in the world, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. Reward her for all she has done. Let her deeds publicly declare her praise. When I read this passage, I can dissect it over and over and over again. But for the sake of this video, I really narrowed it down to about 6 core thoughts that this woman is and what a godly woman is. What is a virtuous woman? What are those characteristics? So I nailed it down to about 6 things, 6 themes, 6 thoughts. And so let's jump right into it. Core thought number 1, she greatly enriches her husband's life. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to state the core theme, and then I'm going to give evidence by the scriptures. So the reason why I say that is because that's exactly what the scripture says in verse 11. Verse 11, and mind you, sidebar, if you see me looking down off to the side, I have my Bible here, have my notes over there, and so bear with me. Okay, just bear with me. And as you see, I got my big Bible here. I got lots of highlights. Don't know if y'all can see that, but lots of highlights in writing. And so I told y'all, I have literally dissect, and this is just one Bible. So anyways, off subject, back on subject. So core thought number 1, she enriches her husband's life. Now in verse 11, it says that very thing. Her husband can trust her and she will greatly enrich his life. In verse 23, it says that her husband is well known at the city gates, where he sits with the other civic leaders. And then of course he sings her praises down in verse 28. It says her children stand and bless her, and her husband praises her. So this is, she has already, by these things we can draw that she is highly respected by her husband. He highly respects her. Secondly, because of who she is, he is able to be who he needs to be. And the reason why I say this is because in verse 23, it talks about that her husband is well known at the city gates where he sits with the other civic leaders. Now, for those who don't know, the city gates of a town in that day and time was considered a place of where people of prestige would go and sit. That's where they would have the court. That's where hearings would be. They oftentimes kings and prophets would go and make declarations there and speeches there. So people who sat at the city gates tend to be city officials, judges, people who were teachers of the law, also people who wanted to have a crowd to speak to. Not that all of them got that crowd, but that's where you would go. It was just like City Hall. You know what I'm saying? It was just like going downtown to City Hall, or going to the city building. That's what the city gates were. And it says that he was able to sit there with other civic leaders, meaning that he was a civic leader. So because of who she was able to push him to be who he needed to be. And mind you, if she was a person who told all of her dirty laundry and told about how her husband was at home and how he got on her nerves and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes we women can do that. We can sit and we can gossip and we can like we do. Do you think he would be able to be sitting at the city gates in a position of respect? No. And so that is why I say the first core thought is she greatly enriches his life. Core thought number 2, she's prepared. She's not idle. Okay. Now I'm going to only reference just one, maybe 2 scriptures when I'm doing this, but you can see the common theme through this whole passage. And I just want to throw that out there because with this, I particularly think with this core thought, you really can see this throughout the whole passage, okay? But I'm only going to share one scripture and I'm going to share verse 15. Verse 15 says, she gets up before dawn to prepare breakfast for her household and plans the day's work for her servant girls. This is a woman that's not like sleeping in. She is up, taking care of her family, getting everything prepared for her whole household. Now it says household, and you got to also keep in mind in that day and time, household then did not include just your husband and your children. Household also includes your servant girls. It also include any servants. It included extended family that lived with you. It included all the people that lived in your household. And dare I say, even the animals. Because if you're planning the day's work for your servant girls, you're probably going to have a farm. You probably have, crops, you have animals and things like that. That is what she did. She rised early before anyone else. And this is something that I was thinking about as I was studying this as well. If you're a person who has servant girls, wouldn't you think they would be the ones that are getting up early, preparing breakfast for the household? Not the actual master woman, right? But that's not what it says here. It says that she got up before anyone and she started preparing breakfast for her household. So again, this is not a woman who is entitled, who thinks, well, I have enough money. I have servant girls. They can do it. They can do it. No, this is a woman that's like, I still have work to do. I'm getting up. I'm going to prepare the day for my family. Everybody has a place to go and things to do, and we're going to figure that out. That's what I read when I read that. So core number 2, she's prepared and she is not idle.